Let's be honest, none of us ever really wants to grow up. That's why the idea of flying off to Neverland with Peter Pan has captured the imaginations of many generations, from J.M. Barrie's play to Disney's beloved film. But what if being young forever came at the hands of a homicidal tyrant? Hey, I'm Frank with Channel Frederator, and beyond that second star to the right, and straight on till morning, we've discovered some of Disney's dark secrets about Peter Pan. And here we go! The play versus the book. While the first iteration of Peter Pan was a stage production in 1904, J.M. Barrie expanded his whimsical children's fairy tale and made it much darker when he novelized the play in 1901 under the title Peter and Wendy, better known just as Peter Pan. Because he explored more grim details about Neverland in it, this is the version we're comparing with Walt Disney's retelling. Meet the Darlings. While Disney's film gives us the impression that the Darlings are well off, J.M. Barrie's book clearly tells us that they are poor. So poor that they needed to budget to see if they could afford to keep Wendy, much less her brothers. This also explains why their nursemaid was Nana, a dog. They didn't even buy Nana, but picked her up as a stray from Kensington Gardens. How's that for a cheery start? Still, the Darlings were kind parents. Mr. Darling isn't as grouchy as he is in the film, and he doesn't demand that Wendy grow up and stop telling stories. In fact, he thinks the kids' imaginations are a product of having Nana as a nurse, and even a bit jealous of Nana, like in Disney's version. But the kids' imaginations probably come from Mrs. Darling, who told them bedtime stories every night, as opposed to Wendy, who does it in the Disney film. It's during this time that Mrs. Darling first learns of Peter, seeing his name everywhere in her children's minds, especially Wendy's. And Mrs. Darling realizes that she recognizes the name, though she doesn't know why. Peter kidnaps the kids. So, Peter's been stalking Wendy for a while in the novel. He's been creeping to her bedside while she sleeps. One night, Mrs. Darling wakes up when Peter enters the nursery. She screams, and Nana runs to bite off Peter's shadow as he flies. Something we didn't see in the movie, though Wendy mentions it.
Shadow? Nana had it, but I took it away.
Concerned that Peter will come back for it, Mrs. Darling stores the shadow in the drawer, opposed to Wendy storing it, like in the Disney version. Unfortunately, Peter returns when the parents are at a party, and Nana is tied outside due to a jealous fit from Mr. Darling. Sound familiar? Sure, Mrs. Darling was a little worried to leave her kids alone, especially since Wendy could tell that Nana's bark was the kind that she makes when she senses danger. But hey, there's a party! So Mrs. Darling left. Anyway, Peter swoops in with Tinkerbell and looks for his shadow. This section shares many similarities with Disney's film. Tink is described as curvy. Wendy helps Peter sew on his shadow. Peter doesn't know what a kiss is. Tink is rude to Wendy. Wendy wakes the boys to meet Peter, and Peter teaches them how to fly after telling them about Neverland. Of course, Disney didn't mention that Peter tried to literally drag Wendy out of the window when he learned that she could tell him her mother's stories. Still, flying's enough reason to convince 3 kids to follow you out of a window. And it's not like Peter took his time. He knew Nana escaped the yard to warn their parents about him, and he needed to get the kids to go with him ASAP. This was a totally premeditated kidnapping. But you know, happy thoughts. Neverland itself. Unlike Disney's version, which benefits from movie magic cuts, the kids in the novel take a long time to get to Neverland. Days pass and they're exhausted, but if they fall asleep, they'll plummet to the ground. And let's talk about the book's Neverland for a moment. Everyone in Neverland is out for blood, for one reason or another, but the Lost Boys are just in the kerfuffle for sport. Well, sort of. As we all know from the Disney flick, the Lost Boys are Peter's troop. What we don't know is that when they disobey him, or accidentally grow up, Peter kills them off. This, of course, terrifies them into following his every demand. Even the reason behind they wear animal pelts is because Peter demands that they never look at him. Sort of takes away from the idea of a Lost Boys group cosplay in animal onesies. And let's not forget to mention Hook. While Hook doesn't kill anyone in the film, it's not surprising that, in the book, he'll skewer any man just for bumping into him because, well, he's a pirate. Otherwise, he's the same old Captain James Hook. He's still terrified of the crocodile since it ate his right arm. Though, for some reason, Disney changed this to his left hand. He's still followed around by the bumbling Smee, and he still wants revenge against Peter. Death is an option, so Tink tries to kill Wendy. Speaking of the rivalry between Peter and the pirates, in Barrie's version, when the Darlings finally get to Neverland, Peter gives John an option: drink tea or find a sleeping pirate to wake and kill. When John mentions he wouldn't mind dueling and killing a pirate while he was awake, Peter basically says, bro, we wake him up and immediately kill him. That's how I roll. Wow. Now we definitely know that murder is just silly fun in Barrie's version of Neverland. Like in Disney's film, when the pirates spot the kids overhead, they shoot a cannon at them. But in the novel, Wendy and Tink get separated from Peter, John, and Michael. which gives Tink an idea. In both versions, Tink leads Wendy to the Lost Boys and convinces them that Peter wants them to shoot down the Wendy bird. Peter saves Wendy before it happens. Buries Peter does not. One of the Lost Boys, Toothless, actually shoots Wendy in the chest with an arrow. Upon realizing their mistake, Toothless is terrified of Peter's wrath, and rightly so. When Peter finds Wendy dead, he's about to strike Toothless down, but to Tink's dismay and Tink's luck, Wendy isn't dead. Peter's kiss from the nursery, a button she tied into a necklace, took the blow instead. Happy that she's alive, the boys build a house for her and ask her to be their mother. She accepts and tells them a bedtime story. This would have been a sweet end for the chapter, but of course, Barry wouldn't give us that. Instead, a fairy orgy is just sort of randomly mentioned at the end. Why? Who knows? No fairy orgies in Disney's retelling, that's for sure. The Mermaid Lagoon and Tiger Lily. Remember how Wendy and Peter showed up to the Mermaid Lagoon in the film, and the mermaids were only trying to drown her? Yeah, that basically happens in the book as well. First off, the mermaids weren't friendly with Wendy or the boys, just Play or Peter. After some goofing off, the children nap at the lagoon, unaware that the rising tide will drown them. Luckily, Peter wakes up when he senses danger. This danger, like in the movie, isn't actually the tide, but nearby pirates, and they have Tiger Lily. Smee and another pirate, not Hook like in the film, plan to leave the tied up Tiger Lily marooned on a rock during high tide, so Peter and Wendy go to save her. Peter mimics Hook's voice, as in the Disney version, and tricks the pirates into letting Tiger Lily go. When the henchmen return to Hook, he tells them the boys have a mother now, which put him and his crew at a disadvantage. Smee suggests they kidnap her and make her their mother, as opposed to kidnapping Tink like in Disney's story. Clearly the guy's a little more piratey in the original take. Only then does Hook realize that Tiger Lily is missing. Peter blows his cover, and a battle ensues between all the Lost Boys and pirates. Not just Peter and Hook. It's only after Hook slashes Peter's chest twice that the pirates withdraw. Peter and Wendy are stuck on a small rock, with the tide coming up fast, and mermaids try to drag Wendy down. Yep, drown her, but Peter saves her. He tells Wendy he's too wounded to fly, and ties her to a kite so she can escape, because apparently she can't fly anymore either, because she's too tired? Come on, Wendy! And there awaits Peter to die. Whereas Peter was never really on the verge of death in Disney's version. Luckily, the Neverbird rests her nests on the water so he can float back to safety. Meanwhile, we don't even know what a Neverbird looks like in the animated Neverland. After the events of the Mermaid Lagoon, the Lost Boys are in the respect of the Pickaninny tribe, and Peter acquires the name the Great White Father. And considering Disney's What Makes the Red Man Red, it looks like both versions have racist undertones. Oh. Wendy and the boys want to leave. Wendy tells the Lost Boys her favorite story, the one about her parents. And she tells this story because her brothers are beginning to forget their family in London. Of course, Peter abhors this story. He tries scaring the kids into believing parents are heartless, saying that his real mother replaced him with a new son. Wendy has none of it, and asks Peter to make the preparations for her, John, and Michael to leave. He coldly agrees, just like in the film. What we didn't know is that he then goes on a murderous breathing killing spree. Peter purposely hyperventilates because he believes every breath on Neverland kills an adult, which means he's trying to kill Wendy's parents. Remember, this is the guy she and nearly all the other girls in the island have a major crush on. The Lost Boys are also afraid that when Wendy leaves, Peter will be a lot worse to them, a notion that never occurred to the Disney boys. First, they consider keeping her hostage, but Wendy offers them to come with. Surprisingly, Peter refuses to join them. Just before they leave, the pirates grab them. But unlike in the movie, Peter sees it happen, and there's bloodlust in his eyes. The Pickaninny, who help the children escape, are mortally wounded by the pirates. Only a few of them manage to escape. The pirates overhear the hiding Lost Boys mention that a beating drum signals that the Pickaninny have won. So Smee finds the drum and beats it to trick the boys into thinking it's safe to come out. They say goodbye to Peter again, not knowing that they are going to be kidnapped for real this time. And now, Peter won't see it happen, just like in the movie. Do you believe in fairies? With the kids now in their grimy hands, the pirates have a more sinister plan. Remember how they tried to blow up Peter Pan with a bomb disguised as Wendy's farewell gift in Disney's retelling? Well, in the novel, Hook sneaks into the Lost Boys' home while Peter sleeps, and is having a nightmare because apparently his own existence torments him at night, and drops poison into his medicine. The same medicine Peter associates with loving Wendy. Looks like both versions of Hook want to use Wendy as a prop in Peter's downfall. Just like Tink burst in to save save Peter from Disney's bomb. In the novel, she flies into the room to warn Peter that the pirates have taken everyone. Before going to save them, Peter decides to take his medicine. Tink tries to warn him it's poison, but he doesn't listen, so she drinks it. As she starts to fade out, Peter implores all the children dreaming of Neverland to clap if they believe in fairies. Imagine if Disney's Peter broke the fourth wall to ask you to clap. It'd be a different experience. Anyway, Tink is saved. And so Peter heads to the Jolly Roger to, murder all the pirates. Hip hip hooray! Murder, blood, the death toll. Like in the movie, Hook gives Wendy and the boys an option. Join my crew or die. Well, except he has different plans for Wendy. He wants her to become the crew's mother. Unlike Disney's boys, who were eager to engage in piracy, Barry's boys immediately refuse. Just as he's about to execute them, the action really starts. Let us preface this with a reminder that Barry's Peter is a killer. But that doesn't become clear until this exact moment in the book, when we see that he's straight up a cold-blooded, murderous fiend. In fact, Peter's so intent on terror that he begins to sound like a ticking clock to invoke Hook's fear of the crocodile, which is basically to say, tickety-tock, here comes murder. Peter cuts down every pirate that passes him. It's so horrible that there are deadly screams aboard, and some pirates even throw themselves overboard to escape death by Peter's sword. Hook sends the children to investigate, and he still doesn't know Peter's on board and keeps Wendy with him. When he hears Peter crow, he thinks the boys have died. He considers drowning Wendy to appease the spirits, and that's when Peter reveals himself. As Peter and Hook duke it out, Hook tries to blow up the ship. We can't imagine Disney's Hook trying to destroy the Jolly Roger just to defeat Peter. Tired of fighting, Hook jumps on the edge of the ship and asks Peter to kick him over. Of course, the bloodthirsty boy does so. The good news? The crocodile finally gets his meal, and Smee manages to escape, just like in Disney's feature. Once a weasel, always a weasel. In the end, Peter's death toll is at least 15. The cycle continues. Before letting Wendy return to London, Barry's Peter sneaks off there to close the nursery window, hoping it will dissuade Wendy from wanting to be with her parents, since she'll think it means they no longer want her. However, when he sees Mrs. Darling crying, he has a change of heart. He lets all the children go back, including the Lost Boys. The Darlings are so overjoyed they adopt the boys. Remember, they are very poor, so maybe this isn't the best idea, no matter how sweet it is. Peter comes to visit Wendy several times that year, but he's forgotten all about their adventures, including Hook and even Tinkerbell. Wait, what happened to Tink? We're just gonna tell ourselves that she went on to become a Disney mascot, okay? Oh yeah, and I think she went on to become a movie star too. Anyway, Peter stops visiting and Wendy grows up to become a real mother to a girl named Jane. You know, the girl who's in the Disney sequel. Wendy tells Jane about her adventures with Peter, and after Jane crows, just like Peter used to, she realizes he's come by. So, she stays up one night to see him. Wendy explains that she's grown up, and so he decides he's going to take Jane for his spring cleaning. You know, like organizing her home during the blooming season. Meaning, Peter basically wants a maid. Wendy begs him not to take her daughter, but he does anyway. Barry ends his heartwarming story by telling us Peter will continue to kidnap future generations' darling girls during this time of the year for maid duties. Gee, what a gentleman. Neverland's inspiration and effect. Where did the idea of Neverland come from? J.M. Barrie was always fascinated by the concept of an immortal child. Sadly, this came from the fact that his older brother David died in an accident a day before turning 14. This death haunted Barrie so far as dressing up in his brother's clothing to try and cheer up his mother. Kind of endearingly creepy? It also sort of explains everyone's fascination with mothers in Peter Pan. David wasn't the only real-life inspiration behind the story. Barrie grew close to the Llewellyn-Davies family, to the point of raising all 5 boys after their parents passed away, though chances are, altered their mother's will to do so. These boys, George, John, Peter, Michael, and Nicholas, shaped Peter Pan, both with their names and through the games they played with Barrie. The story affected the boys in different ways. Peter actually hated being known as the boy who never grew up, and ended up committing suicide by jumping off a train, partially because of the tale. If that wasn't enough, newspaper reports of his death called him Peter Pan. Sadly, some stories lead to dark realities. Again, I'm Frank, and thanks for watching Disney's Dark Secrets about Peter Pan. Still feel like the world is made up of faith, trust, and pixie dust? Did we miss any secrets? Which were the darkest? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to channel Frederator and click on the bell icon to join our notification squad. And remember, Frederator loves you.